modern war is starting to look different. In 2020, a report from the United Nations described something unusual. A drone operating in Libya may have autonomously tracked and engaged targets. No remote pilot, no direct command. It would be one of the first documented cases of a lethal autonomous weapon acting on its own in a real conflict. And the world barely noticed. For most of human history, warfare came down to numbers: more soldiers, more supplies, more firepower. The side with greater resources usually won. That logic shaped military strategy for centuries. But something is shifting. The advantage in modern conflict is increasingly coming from a different place. Not the size of your army, but the speed and quality of your information. And artificial intelligence is changing what that means entirely. Let's be clear about what AI in the military actually is. It's not a thinking machine. It doesn't have judgment or conscience. What it does is process data. Enormous amounts of it. Faster than any human team could. Thermal signatures, satellite imagery, movement patterns, communications traffic. An AI system can scan thousands of hours of surveillance footage and flag anomalies in minutes. A human analyst doing the same job might take weeks. In a conflict where decisions happen in seconds, that gap matters enormously. Drones are probably the clearest example of how this is already playing out. Modern military drones aren't just remote-controlled aircraft anymore. Some carry onboard sensors and software that can identify objects, track movement, and maintain targeting locks with minimal human input. They're relatively cheap to manufacture, they're difficult to detect, and they can operate in environments too dangerous for a pilot. Militaries around the world are developing and deploying drone systems with increasing levels of autonomy. Beyond individual drones, researchers are testing something called drone swarms. Instead of one expensive platform, you deploy dozens or hundreds of smaller drones that coordinate automatically. They share data in real time. They adjust their behavior based on what the others are seeing. If one is destroyed, the rest adapt. No single drone is intelligent on its own, but together, the system can be surprisingly effective. On the ground, autonomous systems, robotic vehicles are being explored for logistics, moving supplies and equipment without putting soldiers at risk. Others are being tested for reconnaissance, scouting terrain and sending back data before humans move in. True autonomous combat robots, the kind that would identify and engage targets without human control, don't exist in any widespread way yet. But the research is active, and the direction is clear. At the command level, AI is already being used, not to replace commanders, but to support them. Systems can ingest satellite data, troop movements, historical patterns, and weather information all at once. Then generate options and predictions for human decision makers. It doesn't decide, it informs. But that line between informing and deciding is becoming increasingly important, because the faster a conflict moves, the more pressure there is to act on the system's recommendation, and that's where things start to get complicated. Here's the core problem with autonomous weapons. Machines optimize for objectives. They don't understand context the way humans do. They don't recognize ambiguity. They don't weigh proportionality the way international law requires. If an algorithm is told to identify and neutralize a threat, it will do exactly that, based on the data it was trained on and the parameters it was given. What happens if those parameters are wrong? What happens when it misidentifies a civilian as a combatant? Who is responsible? The engineer? The commander? The government? These aren't hypothetical questions. They're being debated right now in international forums, including at the United Nations. And so far, there's no global agreement on where the line should be. There's also a broader pattern worth understanding. Military technology often migrates into civilian life. The internet started as a defense project. GPS was built for military use. Many medical imaging tools have defense origins. AI-driven surveillance, autonomous systems, real-time data analysis, developed under military budgets, will likely shape civilian infrastructure too. Policing, border control, urban surveillance, logistics systems. What gets proven in war tends to appear everywhere else within a generation. So where does this leave us? Autonomous weapons and AI-assisted warfare are not future concepts. They're already part of the landscape. What's still being figured out is how to govern them. How do you maintain human oversight when systems operate faster than human reaction time? How do you assign accountability when an algorithm makes a lethal decision? How do you build global norms around technologies being developed in secrecy by rival nations? These questions don't have clean answers yet, but they may be among the most consequential questions of the next few decades. The shift happening in warfare right now isn't really about robots or drones in isolation. It's about the role of human judgment in conflict. For all of recorded history, a person, somewhere in the chain, pulled the trigger, gave the order, or made the call. What's being tested now is a world where that's no longer always true. And figuring out what that means, legally, ethically, strategically, may be just as important as the technology itself.